Again, Eric started with again. All right, sorry, trustee. Okay, in front of you, you have the meeting. Oh, wait, time out. Do we have anybody signed up?
Nobody signed up to speak this evening.
Okay, so in front of you, you have the meeting minutes from September 2nd, 2021. Please review them for any corrections or additions.
On that ordinance granting special use permit to M2 General Industrial Zoning District, I believe it's page 5. Is there a reason why we separated ayes and a yes?
Mr. Code said yes. So,
Oh, okay.
they're.
It's the first time I've seen it, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, he said yes, so, and the base went through the minutes, the friends of the home, so I'm being very, can be proper here.
I appreciate that explanation. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So the worst thing that just happened right now is you told trustee Coe that it has to be separated, so now he's going to do it.
I didn't ask the question.
So yes, every time.
Unless he says no.
All right. Do we have any additions, deletions, or corrections? Then I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from September 2nd, 2021 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Robinson,
Aye.
Mr. Matt,
Aye.
Mr. Code,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Ms. Fodor.
Aye.
Motion passed by ayes, 1 yes.
You all right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, September 17, 2021 marks the 234th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America. So this is a proclamation that's in front of us tonight to reaffirm that this is Constitution Week. So it's September 17th through the 23rd. So it says it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate this occasion. So there's a black party or something for this, I think?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week. So there is that. So I therefore proclaim it. Okay. Mr. Hedges, when you're ready, you're up.
I am ready, and we have before us now a bid opening for the sale of the mill click parcels. And I believe we have Mr. Hennig with us tonight. He's been bearing with us for a long time to get this done. Tonight might be the final step, hopefully.
It will be.
One way or another, if you would open the, I believe we have one bid.
The sealed bid. Now, this was published in the paper and everything, and we followed all the process. Here's the public notice. If anybody wants to read this small print, it was in the paper. And now I get the privilege of opening up the sealed bid, which was received on August 23rd. Okay, so do I have to read the amount out loud, or do we just say that we have a bid?
I think you should read it because it'll become part of the next motion.
We have a bid on the table for $1.
That should be
Which,
sufficient.
honest to God, is more than fair considering that he has been through with this piece of property. So what's next, Mr. Hedges?
So now you have a motion to convey, we would ask for a motion to convey the mill click parcels to the accepted bidder by an appropriate deed to be executed by the village president, the village clerk. That deed is in your packet. The next item, which is drafted by Mr. Schuster, and I believe that can be filled in after the meeting. But if we could have a motion for that point, please.
Does anybody have any questions about this parcel? We're all familiar with the headaches and all that kind of stuff. So with that, I will entertain a motion to convey the mill click parcels to Mr. Henning.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? I have one. I apologize for the hell that you guys have been through for this. We don't understand sometimes how this stuff happens, but it's unfortunate, and I'm sorry that it got drug out as long as it did.
Oh, we appreciate everything that you've done.
bet.
Okay, now, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Mr. Cole,
Aye.
Mr. Mott,
Aye.
Mr. Robinson.
Aye.
Ms. Fodor.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-1 absent.
Thank you all very much for
Now,
that.
we're gonna need 2 signatures on this job.
We'd like us to say to bring that check.
I think we should.
Yeah.
I think we should. And as a and put it up here in the boardroom as a reminder to not let this happen again.
Well, in all fairness, I do thank you for your confidence. Our staff did work very hard to get this done, just a lot of things that have to be done, a lot of details in a situation like this, so we appreciate your patience. The next item we have, Mr. Mayor, is a resolution accepting custody, that would be temporary custody of Army combat material currently in the custody of the VFW Post 8043. This is the U.S. Army M114 howitzer, conditional upon U.S. Army approval. You have in your packet, you have
We have the resolution
a
in front of us.
resolution as well as a letter that would be sent to the Army. And I believe maybe had a chance to share with the village board the question that Trustee Kelly asked this morning. So you probably have a better history of this than I do, Mayor.
Yeah, so,
This is at the request of the Park District.
so the Park District has this beautiful howitzer on their property. It's right now currently in the custody of the VFW. Ms. Runkel is here, this evening on behalf of the VFW. In conversations with the Park District initially said that they just need a letter of support from the village. But then when they sent us the paperwork, the federal government paperwork specifically lists the entities that have the authority to take custody of such an item, and park districts aren't included in it. So they were going to apply with it and try their luck and try to get it, because they talked to a few people in a couple of different offices up in Michigan and said that they would get the paperwork through. But being that we have a short timeline to get this accomplished, I had talked to the park district and talked with Mr. Hedges, and we we're just going to take custody of it as owners, if you will, or temporary custodians of it, leave it at the park district. If you notice that the resolution specifically states the location in which it's going to exist. So therefore, the park district feels that it would still be covered under their insurance and that kind of stuff.
Are we leaving it there until they can take custody of it?
No, that's just where it's staying. If somebody doesn't take custody of the howitzer, the VFW needs to share it back.
No, I understand that. So are we just taking custody of it until they can get the paperwork in order for them?
They don't have the authority to.
They won't. Okay.
They don't,
It has to be a municipality.
I follow you. Okay.
the park district isn't one of the listed types.
Okay.
And so after talking with Mr. Schuster was involved, I assume.
Actually, I don't think we did have to, it was just Jody and myself and
But the VFW,
at the arsenal.
okay, Arsenal and Warren. Okay, so that's the long and short of it. That's why we're involved with it. And so the howitzer is not we're changing location, and we're not going to be responsible for maintenance and that kind of thing. We're just doing it because.
And the resolution does say that it will remain at the park.
Question?
Yes. The only question I have is, does this, what was the word I was looking for? Not ordinance.
Resolution?
Resolution, thank you. Is it strictly limited to this item?
Yes.
I do have a question. I have the application that was filled out. And it does list qualification checklists for donations of combat material to municipalities underneath it. Is this application is specifically stating municipalities? Is there no other application for any other type of governmental agency to take ownership of this?
Actually, when this all started, I spoke with Rebecca up in Michigan, and her understanding, Michigan law is different in that townships, park districts, fire departments, et cetera, fall under townships. So that's why townships were listed in the paperwork. I explained to her that here in Illinois, townships hold the same level of authority as a township. and have their own municipality, or have their own status. And then they can pass referendums, et cetera. So in theory, the park district could potentially pursue it, but because of the timeline, we didn't want to run the risk of the park district getting denied, the VFW, and then it holds up the closing.
So there is a possibility, to trustee Robinson's question, that should we pass this now, we can quickly work with the park district to have them apply, and if they get denied, at least we still have possession of it.
That was the initial plan, was that the park district would do that.
One more question. This is for Mr. Schuster. While I understand that because it's housed or stored at a park, that we're thinking we're not liable should something happen, since we legally own the material or would be taking possession, are we liable should something happen? And does that require us to have an intergovernmental agreement about liability? Mr. Schuster?
It's a good question. Since the village has ownership, you might want to talk to the village insurer, but I heard earlier that the park district will be providing insurance coverage for this item while it's on the park district site. So it may be sufficient to simply get a copy of or be added as an additional insured for this item on the park district policy. If that's well, I guess what could happen? Someone could climb on it and fall off, maybe. Try to move it. It's always hard to imagine some of the things that might result in an injury to somebody, but it bears looking into.
Park district said they were adding to their insurance.
Well, it's under their insurance, anyway, no, it's under yours. So yeah, the park district was going to take ownership of that site out of the director's mouth, who we invited to be here this evening.
Actually, I believe Laura might be on.
I am here.
Okay, so you guys are going to insure this, correct? That was conversation that we had.
We can if we have an intergovernmental agreement or some sort of ownership. So that's why I think that the process of the village actually taking the ownership, and then we have some sort of IGA that says it's at our site and that we have some sort of insurance agreement, that would be fine.
Okay, so we could do like this, pass this, and then in the next meeting, talk about an intergovernmental agreement.
Right.
Yeah, but in the meantime, Lori will speak to our insurance company. We'll make sure we're properly covered. We'll coordinate with Laura.
I think anything's gonna happen, but you have insurance on it.
We have insurance, and we never have, but that doesn't mean you're not gonna have it.
And we're taking the same position they are, so as long as our insurance is the same as theirs. Did you have an intergovernmental agreement with the park district?
Not that I'm aware, we're not a government.
I don't think an agreement would be necessary, but we'll check with the insurance company.
As long as it gets covered, cover our liability.
Yeah.
Right.
Any other questions about the Hollister? Okay. I will entertain a motion to approve resolution 21-10, a resolution accepting custody of Army combat material currently in the custody of VFW Post 8043. Any questions or comments? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Matt,
Aye.
Mr. Robinson,
Aye.
Mrs. Fodor,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Mr. Code.
Aye.
Motion passed, 5 ayes, 1 absent.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, the next item, we would ask for a motion to consideration of a motion to approve a settlement of $5,000 for the Bobbitt mortgage lien claim. You have in your packet an agenda supplement prepared by Attorney Schuster, as well as the settlement agreement. This is a situation where we had some trees on this property. This family moved out several years ago and since it passed away. And so it's been in foreclosure for quite some time. And so we had filed a lien for trees that were falling on the neighbor's lawn. And we went by the property. Of course, we knew where the residents were. They were not able to repair or take care of it. So we actually had the trees taken down because very large branches were falling on the neighbor where they had small kids playing next door. It's quite dangerous. So now this has gotten to the point where it's going through the courts, and Attorney Schuster and I spoke about this several times. It's his recommendation and mine that we accept this settlement agreement rather than wait potentially years and potentially not even have standing in the lawsuit. If you have any more specific questions, Attorney Schuster can answer them more specifically.
I had a question, you and I talked a little briefly about it. Do we know how much we've already spent on legal services or thereabout? Or how much we could potentially spend to try to get the full 10 as opposed to just accepting the 5?
And Mark, can you share with us what your costs have been so far and what they might be going forward?
Yes. The attorney for the bank was very aggressive, claiming that he, on behalf of his client, would litigate and challenge the village's lien. The hot button here is that the village claims a priority. That means it's ahead even of the mortgage and gets paid first out of sale proceeds. So that's not something the bank is happy about, even at $9,800. Whether they really would do that or not is hard to be sure, but he certainly indicated that that would be the case. Document exchange, depositions of village employees to prove the record keeping on abandonment of the property and so on. I don't know what total has been put into this so far, but it would be a low amount. But once we start litigating, it would go up substantially because of the hours involved in resisting the bank's efforts to eliminate the village's position.
And is there a risk that we might not recover anything at all at that point, Mark?
Yeah. Well, there's always a risk. I'm confident that the village followed the statutory requirements, but that doesn't mean that a judge and the other attorney wouldn't find something to disrupt that priority. The lien would be good, but a lien in second position means you have to pay off the first position to keep your lien. And that's not something the village probably wanted to do. This property claim was $140,000 on the mortgage default. You'd have to put that up just to be able to sell and hope to recover your own $9,800.
Any other questions about this?
Seems it would be in our best interest to just.
Then in that case, I will entertain a motion to approve a settlement of $5,000 for the Bobeck mortgage lien claim. Any other questions or comments? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Robinson,
Aye.
Mr. Matt,
Aye.
Mr. Cole,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Ms. Fodor,
Aye.
5 ayes, 1 absent.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, we would now ask for a motion to award a motion to approve a resolution authorizing a grant application for an Illinois Transportation Program and execution of all necessary documents. This is the Safe Routes to School grant application. This is part of the EEI monthly agreement. So this is one of the things that they're doing at roughly 40% of their costs. And they're Chris Odd is working with Josh. You probably recall that we applied for the same grant last year. And with some work, we've identified a couple of weaknesses in our application from last year having to do with letters of support from community leaders. We've already received a letter of support from District 300 Superintendent. Also, there were not very many letters of support from family members or parents. This is the same route that we applied for last year. You have a map of the route in your packet, as well as a fairly descriptive agenda supplement from Josh. So this is just authorization. The application is pretty well completed, but we are now going to be pursuing those letters of support from residents. So this is required that the board authorize this application. And there's no guarantee, of course, but we do believe our application will be a bit stronger than it was last year.
And we do have a lot of community support that we're going to be relying on. There's already been a bunch of people that have reached out and said, hey, we need sidewalks, we want sidewalks, our kids can't walk to school, et cetera, et cetera. I think that there's more of an emphasis on this from the parents' perspective this time around because they changed the busing requirements. And so It used to be that if you lived on the other side of State Street, you got on a bus, and now that's not the case. So,
Then it was
That's
1
right.
mile,
Well,
now
we-
it's 1.5 miles.
yeah, so, I think that we'll be able to get more letters to support this go around.
One of the things that we will be looking toward is, we'll be contacting the principal. I've heard you refer to backpack. I can't remember what you call it.
Virtual backpack.
Virtual backpacking. Well, maybe not so virtual. We like the kids to take something home to their parents so that they can sign these letters of support. So we'll be approaching the principal unless anybody has any better suggestions on how we can get a hold of those people.
Didn't we do this for several years now?
Yeah, but.
And asked District 300 to help us.
And they
District
did,
300
we
never
also
helped.
asked the Park District as well, and they didn't help us last time either, but they will this time, these things.
Do we have like a pre-made form letter that they can just sign?
Yes.
Excellent.
And we'll knock doors if we have to. Because we'll get those letters of support this time.
Great. And I think that sending it home through the school is a great idea. I'm gonna butcher her name, so I'm just gonna call her
Lisa
Mrs. VW, yeah. She's wonderful at communicating with families via email and linking important things, so I don't know her,
Is
but
that the virtual backpack?
no, she just sends an email update every week or so, and I would think she would be totally in support of linking the letter right into that email.
Principal?
This is the principal, yeah,
Is this so is that, you volunteering to set up a meeting with her and advocate for your,
I'm working on that right now.
oh, you're doing it? Awesome, look at you, see?
public relations.
You got people
I
on.
don't like to overstep my mouth. Public relations. Related to public.
You're welcome to do it.
Yeah.
Trustee Footer, if you could just mention that Jeff will be in touch.
Awesome.
And in the agenda supplement, it also explains that the village portion of this, there will be a match required. And I've spoken to Ms. Lyons that if we're successful with the grant, we'll adjust our capital spending priorities for the next year's budget.
With that, I will entertain a motion to approve the resolution 21-11, authorizing a grant application for the Illinois Transportation Program and execution of all necessary documents. Questions or comments? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mr. Coe.
Aye.
Mr. Matt.
Aye.
Mr. Robinson.
Aye.
Ms. Fodor.
Aye.
Motion passed 5 ayes, 1 absent.
Thank you. Next, we would ask for your consideration of a motion to award the Route 72 water main replacement contract to the low bidder, IHC Construction Company of Elgin, in the amount of $103,370. Once again, we're fortunate to have just one bidder. As you've seen in the bid summary, just one bidder who came very close, within about $3,000 of the engineering estimate. And if you have any further questions, Mr. Paulson is on the line with us.
The trustees have asked a few times to have these enlarged. Can we pay EEI extra money in enlarged?
Actually, that's not EEI's responsibility, that's mine. I'll have to print that page separately for you, because when we put it in the packet, that's just how it prints.
Because we can't read
I
it.
can't read it. I have prescription glasses on.
So I guess the obvious question is, why are they so low and everybody else is almost $30,000 more?
One of the things we find, and Tim can speak to this too, is that sometimes, in fact, this happened the last time, if you recall, on Julie Lane, we had just one person that was a lot lower. If they happen to have time on their schedule and available space, then sometimes they'll bid lower just to keep their people busy.
People working? Okay.
That's not happening very much lately. Tim, anything you want to add to that?
No, that's correct. So, everyone has it fits into their, their schedule and, how it fits in. And this has just been a very volatile year on prices and scheduling.
Illinois Hydraulic is a large directional boring company. Employs probably 100 people that do directional boring. They've been doing sewer stuff for 50 years, 60 years. So their directional boring businesses, they're getting slammed from out of staters, so they have extra time and manpower.
Why? So we're seeing projects pushed back specifically like streetscape, Route 72, because of inflated material costs? Is this not being affected? Are the materials used in this not being affected in this particular project? Where it's just inflated that we can't do it?
Well, I'll just speak briefly to that and let Tim fill in the blanks. Streetscape was very much that, the material costs were higher.
Right.
That was not the case in State 72. That was an agreement that was made during the pre-con meeting, but they are still scheduled to meet the end date of 10/28/22. In this case, Tim, can you speak to that? The materials here,
Yeah, I mean, the material cost is part of why, you know, it's higher. We originally did these plans in the spring, and then it was, you know, the project was on hold for a bit for budgeting reasons, and we went out to bid. We adjusted our prices based on what we were seeing up to try to account for that, and still we were, you know, a little low. So yeah, it is. There are higher material prices right now, but this is I consider it a critical project for Montgomery utility supervisor with numerous breaks on this section. So that's why I think we're recommending to move forward.
and let's just also add, their original budget for this was only $60,000. So EEI anticipated that these costs would be higher.
Okay.
And that will cause us to readjust in fact, Mark has already adjusted his capital budget to cover
That's 40% over budget, what we originally went. Okay.
Any other questions about this?
He feels it needs to get done now, right?
And this is Mark's
Critical.
He's really been concerned about this. In fact, we just had another leak just a few weeks ago, if you
Right.
recall.
I know it's a problem. They're always doing a water main over there.
Unfortunately, there's only 2 customers on the south side of the road, but they're entitled to their village water like everybody else.
There's actually 3, Jay. We discovered another one while we were doing the design. So
Okay. Water bill.
Yeah, never paid a water bill.
If it has to get done, it has to get done.
Okay, so with that, I'll entertain a motion to award the Route 72 water main replacement to contract to the low bidder of IHC Construction out of Elgin for $103,370.
So moved.
Questions or comments? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Fodor? Aye. Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Coe?
Aye.
Mr. Matt?
Aye.
Mr. Robinson?
Aye.
Motion passed 5 ayes, 1 yes.
Thank you. Before I introduce Finance Director Lyons for the next item, I do want to point out that we also had a treasurer's report just 2 weeks ago. That was actually a little bit late. This one is on time. So this is the August report. And we'll be getting them to you hopefully at the second meeting of the following month, which is our schedule. In addition to that, I want to point out that you may see some pages are numbered twice, but in order, because we're going through the packet and the budget, this week I numbered the entire packet, 1 through page 60. So please look at those page numbers as you're referencing any questions. With that, Lori?
All right, so, as Jay said, we're on time this time, but July was a little bit delayed because of my vacation in August. So, we're addressing the same key factors that we were looking at in prior months, in the main operating funds. Everything is, doing really well revenue-wise. Sales tax is over our estimates. This is the 4th month of our fiscal year, so we should be at approximately 33.3% of budget. And as you can see, the only thing that's a little bit under is our use tax. And again, that is a number that is a Lori estimate, so we may see that come back strong. It's all based on timing and payments of use tax, so I'm unsure if I'm just over or we'll catch up, so we'll see. With respect to our taxes, again, we would expect to be at the 33.3% amount. We are lower on Building permits, they were really strong when we were seeing the stimulus money come through, and that just hasn't been really the case. So we're kind of on target with respect to that, but a little bit lower than I would expect because we're in the summer construction season. Places for eating tax is, again, a little under budget. We've done a lot of follow-up calls for people either using the correct tax return at 2% and yet only paying 1%, or they're just used to their old system, so we're still doing a little bit of catch up. I feel still that that will be recovered. Fines, fees, and reports is lower than expected. We're just not seeing the same dollars coming through the court systems that we have in the past. So, and towing fees are, again, very strong. With respect to our property taxes, we have received order distributions now, and this month we received a large distribution, which will show up obviously when I give the report for September, due to the second installment of property taxes being due to the county treasurer's office. But we are still at 56.4%, and as of August 31st, we were expecting at least at 50%. As far as expenditures in the general fund that are a little bit off target, admin, printing, advertising, and forms is over budget. I would say that's mainly due to rebranding and the fact that we are charging our newsletters to that line item. Capital outlay is over, again, because of the boardroom rebranding that was not in our budget. We spoke about software computer licenses last time. That's going to remain out of sync to the extent that we've paid our ERP licensing for our annual licensing already. We're right at 100% of 911 services. That's going to stay consistent. We won't be receiving any other additional bills for that particular reason. Police professional services, other professional services includes the annual licensing fee for Lexipol that we spoke about last time. And then our street sweeper is in that street capital outlay expense account. We were a little bit low on water and sewer services when we looked at those operating funds last time. Again, the biggest variance on these are the fact that we have a bi-monthly billing cycle, but boom, 33.3% were like almost spot on this month. So I still feel that our revenue estimates for both of those are going to be good. With respect to enterprise funds that have unusual expenses, sewer, gasoline, and oil, there was an expense this particular month for machine oil that was not budgeted. So I feel pretty strongly that we will be overexpended in that particular line item. But we've learned from experience that this giant barrel of machine oil will have to be purchased every couple of years. So we'll make sure that we have it in the budget next go around when it's necessary. And then sewer other expenses, that is the IEPA permits that we spoke about the last time. Are there any questions? Oh, and one other thing, if you go to, let's see, what page is that? In the enterprise funds, it's fund number 34. Right. Let me see here. That is page 5 of 7. So page 39 in Jay's numbers. Fund 34, which is in the first column, bottom of the page. We did receive our first payment for the ARPA funds in the amount of $424,894. That is the first half of our distribution. And as you know, we believe that we will ask you to utilize those funds for the north-south water connection. So we do have half of those funds in the bank already. Any questions?
I have one. First, thank you again for this. It's awesome.
Sure.
it's not in regards to this, it's in regards to overall financial projections.
Yes.
So we started the year with a budget, knowing that we were gonna be plus or minus based on how the census results came out.
Yes.
Census results have come out. How
Kind
does that, well, yeah, how do you see that affecting those population-based tax revenues that were dependent on what that number looks like? I know we're not getting authorized or whenever it's up closer to December, but now that we have a ballpark, is it around where you thought it would be? Is
So
it higher or lower?
my mind tells me, and I could be a little bit off, but I believe that I had 7190 in the budget, and we actually ended up at 7,700 and, a couple of people. So, the projections will actually be lower, than our
So
actual. So, yep, it'll be,
Potentials.
yes.
And how about the timing part?
So nothing has followed the census from 2010. But if you do follow the pattern as far as when the census numbers were announced versus when we actually saw a change in our revenues, I expect the change to happen in November. And again, my budget projected that guess for December. So we'll have a whole month of extra, difference between 5563 and 77, 76, 67 or something, whatever that number was. So we'll have an extra month of that extra dollars too.
The risk there, trustee Kelly, is still that those two items are income tax and motor fuel tax. And so those could be down statewide. If those are down for any reason statewide, our portion will then be down as well. But they'll be up because of the forecasting that Lori did was conservative, both in terms of timing and their population. But the other factor in there is the amount collected by the state that is then redistributed.
So, and I do feel like we're okay with that respect also. We're collecting monies now from taxes that were from 2020. So, the revenue was still strong at that point. Unemployment, there was some, obviously some relief to people with respect to taxes with that, but the IML estimates are still very strong. That was that the September or August? They provided an update in their IML review magazine, and Illinois income tax and MFT both were supposed to still meet their projections or exceed them.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
No, I just wanted to say thank you.
Sure.
With that, Chief Thompson, would you like to talk a little bit about the police incident report?
Pretty much a normal month. Our traffic is starting to die off a little bit. It's, I think, due to a lot of the events are settling down. Domestics that were pretty high for the month. A couple of major investigations we're kind of going through now that I can't really talk about, that'll be released within the next week or so, but other than that, pretty busy.
No questions about that?
I don't think so.
If not, Tim, would you like to review the engineering report, please?
Yeah, thanks, Jay. So just a couple of notes on the connection water main we've talked about. So that's in for permitting with the various agencies, and Mark's working on the easements. We're hoping to be able to go out to bid at the end of this year, early next year, for construction next year. And of course, Route 72 water main repair is just awarded, so we should see that construction in the next month or so. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has.
I would just like to add to the water connection project. We now have projected 1.8 million of revenue available among all the sources of funds, the two member initiative grants, the one reimbursement of $75,000 for older grant, and then the ARPA funds. So we do have the funds available. Julie Morrison from EEI is the primary engineer on that project, and I spoke with her today. We expect to have bids out by January, in the ground by March or April, and completed by July or August. So this project should be on schedule. Actually, that's a little ahead of our plans.
potentially have three major construction projects all happening at the same time.
Correct.
What a time to be alive. But I
This
just,
one's pretty restricted to Gas Road up north.
thank you, Mr. Ronco.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the engineering report? Thank you very much, Mr. Polson.
Next thing then, Mr. Mayor, ask for a motion to approve the September 16th, 2021 account payable to personnel.
Ms. Fodor? Last time you had a question.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Mr. Gold?
Just ask me who John Huff was.
He's a police officer.
That's why we didn't ask.
Now we know. Okay. I will entertain a motion to approve the accounts payable to personnel in the amount of $210.08. Second. Questions, comments? Roll call vote, please, Ms. Clerk.
Mr. Matt,
Aye.
Mr. Coe,
Got it.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Ms. Fodor,
Aye.
Mr. Robinson.
All right.
Motion has 5 ayes, 1 absent.
Thank you. Then we would ask for a motion to approve the September 16th, 2021 regular accounts payable.
Now, there was amendment to this, correct, based on, instead of what you see in the packet?
Yes,
Is-
so on page 1, we are going to not pay card member services $891.67. We actually have an overpayment due to a duplicate payment that was made and discovered. So, we will be, those amounts will just essentially be, we're going to expend those amounts because they're already expended on the credit card, but we will not be issuing a payment because of an overpayment.
So what's the new amount?
The new amount is $188,516.96.
It's freaking me out. There's two Mr. Hedges.
What happened?
Oh, I had to do that to start the recording, but I can get up.
All right, I will take, any questions about the accounts payable? I will entertain a motion to approve the accounts payable in the amount of $188,516.96. Second. Questions, comments? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Ms. Fodor,
Aye.
Mr. Coe,
All right.
Mr. Matt,
Aye.
Mr. Robinson.
Aye.
5 ayes, 1 absent.
That's all
Okay,
we have tonight, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
fantastic. BDC, you're up.
BDC met last week, last Wednesday. A couple of updates. So some of you, I think it was sent to all of the board, saw the latest Hampshire's very own, which will be the Ross Gas Pump Garage. The next one would be Roy's Place. There is a change to some of the schedule, just to let everybody know. So September will be Roy's Place. We actually are taking out James Automotive from being highlighted because it was already written up in 2018. So there's already been a Hampshire's very own for James Automotive. Instead, Jimmy's Sports Bar will move up to October. Christina Michelle Salon will move to November. The O'Reilly Dental will be in December. And then January and February, we're leaving open in case there are new businesses that come into town. It allows for a couple of slots in case that happens. And then the BDC realized that we've never done one on the chicken dip. So March, when they reopen, will be the chicken dip. We all had the same visual reaction when we looked at it.
How is that possible?
Yeah, so we figured we would hold off on them until they reopen back from the winter and provide that business. So that's on the Hampshire's very own. Any questions on that part? That will, for the PR committee, that'll change a little bit of the schedule
Okay.
for the Hampshire, well, just on the Hampshire's very own, in case you want to include it in newsletters or any type of communication.
And you'll share that.
Any question?
So, Roy, the current article was sent to the PR committee this week. Just waiting on your approval, and then we'll get it posted.
Cool. For the ambassador program, so an update on that is we are looking to limit it to a small test group to begin with, and really pivoting to focus heavily on the CEO level and the CEO focus and feel. There are multiple reasons for that, but one of the big ones was that way we're trying to also not duplicate efforts of the chamber, and how do we partner with the chamber on some things? And so that more CEO executive high touch feel isn't something the chamber currently does, and that's something that we can help fill a gap. So the BDC is continuing down that road. We also, during the beautification committee report update, we discussed the feedback that was received by the group about clarification of the facade program and the grants and the application thereof. And so we discussed that feedback, and Mr. Swalwell is going to look into it further. How can we further clarify, further define? It was just rewritten or amended about a year ago. So this is more of a, let's get some feedback from those that have applied through it, and not just on the qualifications or what qualifies, but also the application process itself. With some of the feedback, and he may be reaching out to this board as well for the feedback, but it was a good discussion, and so the action out of that was, okay, let's take a look and see where and if we can refine that at all. Did I miss anything, Mr. Hedges?
I don't think so.
Okay, any questions for BDC? Next meeting will be next month. Okay.
Okay. Public relations.
All right, we have not had meetings since our last board meeting. However, we will have another one on the 23rd of September. That's next Thursday, right here, 7 p.m.
Awesome. Mr. Coe, Public Works.
I have no report. I'll refer to Mr. Hedges.
Nothing really to add. We're busy.
Budget. New business. Announcements.
I just have one question. What's going on with the Route 20 with the Greer property? That is, I drive by there twice a week, and it's becoming more. They keep adding more and more.
Yeah, so it's a work in process. They do have a court date on September 25th, which will give us a little leverage, but at this point, we're actually in kind of a holding pattern of cooperation. If you notice that what they have done is completed the house. The house really looks nice. They completed all the repairs on the house. They planted grass in the front yard. It looked great, so they let it grow to about 12 inches high before they mowed it. And they have continued to mow and keep the weeds down pretty well. So they're, in terms of code violations, they're pretty well within the code. The problems we have now are violations of the zoning, which is all the trucks that are parked outside. We met, Mr. Schuster and I, and Mayor Mike.
Favorite meeting.
It was an interesting meeting. Since then, we've sort of reached an agreement. When they purchased the Greer property, they believed that they inherited a 10-year agreement, which was called temporary zoning. That was part of the Greer agreement. There are two positions on that. We could take a very firm position that they did not purchase the business, so they did not purchase that zoning, or we could take a little more lenient cooperative approach and understand the family situation, and this is their situation. 3 generations. They had 3 different businesses, Chicago, Elk Grove, and here. Actually, this was really never an operating business. All those businesses have now closed, and they're really just consolidating all the materials and everything from the other businesses. They know that they're in violation of the zoning. They still don't agree with our interpretation of the agreement, of the Greer agreement. But in order to cooperate, they have said that agreement expires, I believe it's in May next year, Mark?
Yeah, it's April or May, yes.
Right. So we've taken the position right now that if they will get everything in order by then, get rid of all those trucks, paved a certain area, so any licensed vehicles can be parked outside as long as they're on a paved asphalt surface. They have agreed to do that. But all those trucks are full of various kitchen appliances and countertops and all kinds of materials that they're trying to sell. Rather than just sell them at a fire sale, they're trying to get some value out of them. So that's why it's taking them longer. Trustee Coe, I absolutely agree. They could at least line the trailers up, make it look a little tidier on the property. They just make it look worse. So I called Oscar this week, that's his son, and I spoke to him and asked him to do that. And he said that they would. So it's not a good situation, but it is improving.
Thank you.
Any other questions or announcements?
Yeah, I spoke last time about, just the COVID numbers and the importance of wearing that mask and following safety protocols. According to the latest D300 COVID dashboard, Hampshire is far and away leading the pack here with close contacts among students and student positive cases. So I just wanted to share a few numbers of the 149 students that have tested positive throughout the entire district, which is 27 schools,
111 square miles.
111 square. Hampshire High School has had 33 of those cases, which is, the second place school was Dundee Crown High School at only 17. I'd say only 17 because we've doubled the second place school. Third place school is an elementary school in Hampshire, Gary D. Wright, with 16 positive cases for students. So I'd like to again stress the importance of all of those mitigation measures that we can take. Wash our hands, social distance, please wear the mask. Our kids under the age of 12 cannot be protected. The third place school for COVID cases is an elementary building where kids are under the age of 12. And if you look at the staff COVID numbers, they're not being infected at the school. It is coming from outside the school into the school. So I'd like to remind businesses again that we are under a mask mandate by executive order from our governor. I've visited a few local businesses as a customer in the past 2 weeks. I've noticed 2 have signs requiring masks to enter. 1 had a sign recommending a mask but not requiring, and I don't remember, I think several no sign, and customers in non-eating establishments, no masks, as well as employees. So I would really like to stress that importance that our kids, we are responsible for protecting our kids right now. As I said last time, kids are the subgroup that is the largest in hospitalization right now. They can't protect themselves. We have to do it for them right now. So please, 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 the entire community, please take those safety measures. Please help us out. We need to get through this.
Are those numbers you're stating for this month?
They are the numbers up through yesterday, September 15th. So the kids have been in school for a month, just a touch over a month by now. We've had 1,000 close contact, over 1,000 close contacts among students, which is 1,010 chances that a kid is going to contract this virus. We've had 149 student positive cases in 1 month. So
About half of those came from here. District.
alarmingly so. I mean, and we are the least populated area in the entire district, yet producing the highest numbers. We're going into fall, and it's not going to get better. As we know how viruses work, things get worse into fall, into winter. So I'm very, very concerned where this is headed if we are at these numbers already.
Your hospitals are also full now. I have no rooms at Huntley or McHenry today.
And turning away patients that need those beds because they're full of COVID patients. So.
I would like to second those comments. Thank you for making them. I admit that I don't shop in Hampshire nearly as much as I used to because I don't feel safe. And I would like to encourage people to take the steps. If we are truly a community, if we truly care about each other, take the simple step to protect others. You may be protected. That's wonderful. But you don't know what you may cause somebody else. So please do the loving thing, do the kind thing, do the thing that is important for our kids. I know nobody likes remote learning, but if we can't keep them safe in school, they're not going to be in school. They're going to come home again. And I don't know anybody who really enjoyed it. So I'd like to remind you that that's how we keep it in school.
But as an educator myself, I can tell you it is not good for most kids to be behind that screen trying to do school. It is not, it is good for a few, a handful, but for the majority, it is not good. We are seeing issues that you would not believe that have come back to our school because these kids have been out of school for potentially a year and a half. It is not school like you remember it. And also as an educator, I look at these numbers and I see remote learning coming. I see it coming. If we cannot get this under control, and we as a community can, we just have to all do our part to make it happen.
Okay, any other publishing news?
I'd like to ask a question. I saw on Facebook this week a few comments from Hampshire residents over the changing of the ComEd and Dynegy, and people asking what is going on, what information we have, and also what are we doing with our contract, or if we have one with ComEd or whoever for the electric utility for Hampshire.
So if you remember, NIMAC was in front of us, I think one of your first meetings, July 1st or so. They were in front of us and they were the electrical aggregate that had the quote unquote best rates. And they weren't any different than ComEd. If you remember, they weren't any different than ComEd and they wanted to give us like $25,000 or something like that.
For 3 years, 75,000.
For 3 years. And there was really no benefit to the resident. And so since there wasn't a benefit to the resident, it was this board's decision not to move forward with the aggregate provider. And so because of that, all the other aggregates got a notice that said, hey, these guys are open for business, and residents have been inundated with phone calls and then letters at their house and stuff like that from both ComEd saying, hey, welcome back, because we're now your rate provider, and additional aggregate companies because they're now on the open market for power. So I saw that post too, and I jumped on and explained that same thing, but I don't think that the village put out an official statement that we didn't partner with an energy aggregate. I mean, that's certainly something that we could do. But I mean, really, it was this board's decision not to move forward with the aggregate provider because the rates weren't any better.
So we have no aggregate providers. ComEd is the electricity provider for all residents.
Yeah, ComEd sending notices out to everybody, notifying them of that. I got mine yesterday.
Now, that nothing is stopping the resident, just like in the past, nothing's stopping the resident from jumping on with another aggregate provider if they so choose.
They have to seek that out though.
Well,
Those people are calling them out every day right now.
Yeah.
I don't know that that statement's true, because I haven't received one thing in the mail or one phone call about electrical aggregation since.
I got my comment thing yesterday.
From ComEd, I get notices, but I'm not getting things from aggregate.
I've gotten 2 or 3.
I got a notice from ComEd saying that the aggregate's expired. We are now your sole supplier.
Yeah, and I can only speak for myself. When the person that came from the aggregation company or partnership presented that their proposed plan was just to match and guarantee a match of ComEd rates, but that we would in return, we would give their company all of our residents' information to be able for them to select which ones that they would have as part of their aggregation program. For me, it didn't sit well. And that's what, again, I'm speaking for my own vote on that. And that's why I said, well, if there is zero benefit to the resident at the end, direct out of their pocket, right? We can make arguments whether the 25K was a residential benefit. Then I wasn't comfortable feeling like we were giving information to her with no benefit to the resident. So that was just my.
I've only had 3 calls here at Village Hall myself, so.
I see a lot of electrical bills because I'm dealing with solar. And on your electrical bill, it tells you who the provider is. And if there is a concern for the people that already have solar. If that changes, if that provider changes, those people can lose saved electricity for down the road use. And if they think that, those people could lose quite a sum of money. I have a client of mine, several years ago, I installed helped him, become involved in the program for a lease. And for 12 months, he had been double billed from the ComEd and the other provider, Dynegy, because somehow it got switched. He didn't do it, but I didn't get asked about this for about 10 months, and I found out he's paying both companies for his electrical bill, so he's paying double for his electricity, and now has it in the hands of an attorney. So I don't want to see people get into situations where that could be a problem.
Trustee Mott, I do want, you mentioned that at the last meeting, I believe. And so we have contacted, there were 5, NIMEC was kind enough to give us a list of all the people who have solar power. We're getting that credit. And we've contacted every one of them, made sure that not only called them, but got through and spoke to every one of them about what they need to do.
Okay.
Thank you for doing that, Mr. Hedges. And to the staff.
Josh was the one that did the legwork as usual.
Great.
Anything else?
Mr. Mayor, I just have one thing I'd like to add. I want to thank Mike Stark personally and Stark in general. We had a really bad situation up on Cameron Drive with some water service lines that had failed. The second time the same house had failed. I think you're all probably more familiar with the first failure at the same house. And Stark came out. We had EEI out. We had quite a powwow, and they came up with a really creative solution, which we authorized as an emergency authorization about 2 weeks ago. It started the Tuesday after Labor Day, which was last Tuesday, and completed on time Thursday afternoon. And now it's been completely restored. And our street department will do the final cleanup. In fact, the resident called yesterday, was the cable company came right behind us and trenched right through his side yard and his backyard and left a mess. So we got them back out to correct that. But Stark was really a helpful company. They, as Trustee Coe mentioned earlier, they're good at directional boring. We did that. We also replaced the main, so we eliminated that loop. So those lines are not likely to leak again. And so Stark really did a great job. Very helpful.
That's good news.
As was our utilities and street department. It was a real team effort.
I'd like to say that there's the crop walk that we talked about at length last meeting. That's happening on September 25th. Information is out there on social media for what that all entails. That's gone on for a few years. Also, Lieutenant Jones celebrated his 20-year anniversary and with a private ceremony here, I guess, at the Village Hall. We talked about that today, the chief and I did. So I challenged both Mr. Hedges and the chief of police and the department heads that if there's a big announcement or something like that, or an anniversary, we need to do better as coming up with a process of plaques or pins and that kind of thing to really kind of help improve morale. Some of these are big milestones. As an example, Ms. Vasquez sitting next to me celebrated her 20-year anniversary and we gave her training. So I think we should come up with something.
You should get something.
Yeah, other than reappointed.
Right.
Because that's a reward for doing good work, is more work.
So, if I can make a recommendation on that, to connect with, Laura Straw at the Park District. Before I left the board there, they went through a process of like employee tenure recognition, and based on 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year, 15, I forget the breaks of it, but each thing was like a set, like every employee knew when this plan went in, when they hit 10 years or 15 or 20 years, this is what they could, maybe it was a choice between a jacket or something else, or whatever it was, but they put together a similar type of program. So they may be able to send over like, here's what they do. But that was something that came up as well, as like, how do you recognize service?
Other than that, I don't have anything. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So,
Can you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Robinson,
Aye.
Mr. Matt,
Aye.
Mr. Cole,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Mr. Fodor, Ms. Fodor, Ms. Fodor. Motion passed, 5 ayes, 1 absent.
You said C, didn't you?
4 ayes, 1 absent.
Yes,
Thank you
ma'am.
all very much.
I-
All right.